what's up everyone, it's Jan Bors, it's New Humans of Eurovision show. So please like, share and subscribe the channel because our focus today is the country of channels, the Netherlands. And the Netherlands is a hosting country, of course, and it's opening up again. And we're talking about it with Sietse Bakker, the executive producer of Eurovision Song Contest of 2021, as well as a creator, one of the creators or the producers of Europe Shine a Light, which was very important event for the Eurovision world and maybe for the world and the Europe itself. We're gonna talk about this, we're gonna talk about the possibilities for 2021, and we're gonna talk about the philosophy of his team about Eurovision. And I can promise you that after you'll see it, you will be cheering up like I do now. So please welcome Sietse Bakker. Hey Sietse, I'm really glad that you have time for me to have this conversation, this interview, because you must be very busy, well, for 2 years already probably.
Yeah, it's actually a fun break to talk to you and catch up on some memories and look forward to what this year is going to bring.
Yeah, I'm really curious what this year is going to bring, but let's get back to the past for a while because you're on the long road already for obvious reasons, but can you tell me a good memory, which is your first 5 minutes after you realized you won the Eurovision Song Contest in 2019?
It's I was actually in another job at the time, and I didn't know I was going to do this job until several weeks later. But obviously, having been closely involved with Eurovision and having seen my own country going through, I think it was 8 years not qualifying for the final up to 2013. So the idea that my own country could actually win was pretty slim. And when it actually happened, it was a very very emotional feeling. And made me very proud, of course, which I think everyone who loves Eurovision, if your country wins, you know that feeling.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know this feeling yet, but one day, probably, hopefully, it will happen for sure. Well, Portugal were waiting for a lot of time. Well, but how was your first weeks at the job when you became executive producer for Eurovision 2020?
Yeah, I was asked actually to come to the broadcaster office on Monday because they knew I was involved with Eurovision for many years, and they asked me if I wanted to just come by and share some thoughts and some advice, and I said of course I'd be happy to. So I vividly remember going to the NPO offices. I think it was around 2:00. And when I came in, it was very funny. There was donuts at the reception from Dunkin' Donuts, but they changed their name in Dunkin' Donuts.
We're not paid for this, you know. He didn't have to say it.
Not at all. Not at all. I do remember I didn't have any lunch, so I quickly ate one of those donuts before I went in, and we had a very interesting but long meeting. And from the response and the questions I got, it became clear to me that they had more in mind for me and a few other people to lay the foundations of what would become our organization. And those very first weeks were obviously very intense because for many people in the broadcaster, it's a first time, it's a unique experience, and they don't know what is going to happen. So
yeah, and as well in the Netherlands, the structure of public broadcasters is kind of different than from many other countries where it's just one main public broadcaster, but in the Netherlands it's kind of shuttered, if I can say like this. So how this was hard to get all those broadcasters and probably their managements and the people and just forge the team, how hard it was, and how did you make it?
Yeah, the Netherlands is a bit different from many other countries because we have an umbrella organization, which is NPO, Netherlands Public Broadcasting, and they manage and operate the channels. So they make the schedules, the brand identity, make sure that everything is compliant with the law. And then underneath, there are several different broadcasting organizations that actually create the content, and they all have a different focus and a different profile. In the Netherlands, Afrotros is the broadcaster that actually participates in the Eurovision Song Contest, so they in fact won. But it's also tradition that NOS, which is the news broadcaster, has the experience of hosting large events and also host broadcast the previous Eurovision Song Contests that took place in the Netherlands. So it became very clear from the start that this was going to be a three-way collaboration. And we looked within all three organizations to find the best people to build a great team. And that's what we focused the first weeks on, obviously alongside finding the money, starting the host city bid process, and drafting a timeline, because if you host Eurovision, you don't have enough time, basically. So you have to start working on day one.
Yeah, you basically did start at the day one. From my point of view, because I remember I've been in Rome, it was September 2019, so 3 or maybe less than 4 months after after you're winning the Eurovision, and you already got set up the team, you got this time schedule, you already knew it's gonna be in Rotterdam, or you probably knew it. You almost probably had the logo and all of those graphical elements, and I was just sitting there at the press conference when you were just, or the HOD conference, or how to call it, and I was watching and said, like, we're in the good hands. It's almost done. Just deliver them the songs, and it's just good. And I found out one more thing, that you had this team of yours, which was quite huge, kind of. But it was all made from the people from the Netherlands, which is a big new step after all of those years when there was a hosting broadcaster and the Swedish team collaboration. So why did you do that?
Yeah, well, first of all, I mean, a lot of credit and respect to our friends from Sweden, because they've built up a great deal of knowledge about the song contest and have been able to share that with broadcasters from many different countries. And I think the increased popularity of the song contest in the last 20 or so years is for a large part thanks to their effort. At the same time, we know that the Netherlands is a country which is known for a lot of TV formats. There are a lot of TV and event professionals here. Think of The Voice, Big Brother. Think of large festival organizations like ID&T that do have a lot of big brands operating around the world. So there are a lot of competent people here in the Netherlands, and what we realized is that we could probably make this work with an all Dutch team. So what we did is we started to look for the best people in the country to work on the song contest. We felt that yes, there is a bit of risk in that. So we did ask some people from Sweden for advice, like Ola Melzik.
I was talking about it.
Yeah. So we did ask them for advice, but they were not they were not in the roles that they are often in, like head of production. So with some advice from them, with some really good advice from previous host broadcasters from Israel, from Portugal, from Sweden, we managed to basically get everything we needed. We also felt it was important to find our own voice and to put a stamp on it, because what we did see when you look at the previous Eurovision Song Contest is that there were also a couple of elements that were quite similar, And we thought, let's try and make this distinctly Dutch, and see where that brings us. And that is also healthy for the song contest.
Just sorry that I'm interrupting you, but I'm really curious because I'm not sure if like everyone just got this, like you just say it's completely Dutch and everybody just know, oh, because of this and this and that. Can you describe some really stamps, as you called it, which makes difference, that you like, this is different from the past 5-6 years, this is us?
Yeah, obviously a lot of that is still to be seen, because we haven't shown what we created to Europe and the world yet. But things like the visual identity, which is distinctly Dutch design, the creative elements of the shows, the postcards, the opening and interval acts, the hosts. We wanted the Dutch audience to recognize the song contest that we are making as something that comes from them, something that is their gift to Europe, and obviously to be able to tell the people in the Netherlands that we did this as a nation by bringing together the best people from the industry. Our ambition was and remains to make them proud, and we hope we will do that even under those challenging circumstances that we are in now.
I'm pretty sure you already done it, as you didn't cry about the cancellation. You just took it as a fact. From my point of view, that was a really, it should be very hard for you, but it didn't. You just, make the all effort, and then not just you, of course, but the whole team and the broadcasters, and it just really looked like you all stick together as the country, and it was really nice to see. And it must have been hard. How many people have lost their jobs during this cancellation? Because like most of fans, they probably don't see that how big scale the event is in the terms as well of how many people are getting jobs, paid jobs for creating it on many like levels and layers of its creation.
Yeah, it's like our team just within the host broadcaster is about 80 people, and then you have a lot of big suppliers that you're working with for stage construction and light and audio and all sorts of things. There's people at the venue, there's people in Rotterdam preparing the side events. They have suppliers. So all in all, it's thousands of people, part-time or full-time, that are involved with the song contest. And obviously for them, it was really sad to see the event cancelled. But we know that there are hundreds of thousands of people around the world that put all their love into amazing events, and saw all of that cancelled at the start of this global crisis. And that's really sad. It's also interesting to see how many of them manage to innovate and find new ways to get together and do events, primarily virtual. And I think there are a lot of good examples of how that was done, with new tools, and where long conferences were turned into multimedia experiences, almost like TV shows. That's really interesting to see, but of course it does not come close to actually getting together and feel the energy of a large crowd together celebrating music, culture, diversity. So we hope that one day we'll go back to that, obviously.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it, all of us, but we'll get back to this team in this interview as well. But let's get back to the past. You said it really helped a lot of people or a lot of productions or a lot of TVs or whoever else to adapt the situation, because if we're not adapting it, we can cancel the whole industry, like for who knows for how long, And one of the first things happened, which really shown that even on the international scale it can be done somehow, and that was Shine a Light event for Eurovision? How was challenging to make it, and how challenging actually it was to tell other broadcasters, okay, Eurovision is cancelled, we need to do it somehow, because there were many opinions about this at the beginning. I think nowadays everybody understands it, but that definitely wasn't the thing in the first month of the cancellation.
Yeah. No, of course, the cancellation, I don't think it came as a big surprise to a lot of people, because, you saw other events being cancelled, or there were stories about cancellation like the Olympics and Euro football. But we felt immediately that this was exactly the right time to do something together and to create that sense of unity. At the beginning of the crisis, maybe you had it in your country as well, but what you saw is that all the news was either about what happens in our own country, or it was about what happens in other countries.
Yeah, actually, I was doing all those interviews because I'm working as a director for the news department, so I was like all into it. So for me, it wasn't a surprise.
So you know what the story was at the time. And there was very little attention, understandably, at the start of this pandemic of, we're actually really in this together, and we can only get out of it together. So rather than, talking about ourselves and talking about each other, let's talk with each other and do something with each other.
Which is still kind of hard. But it's the best way how to make it. So sorry.
Yeah. So we thought, okay, we have to seize the moment, knowing that there was suddenly a gaping hole in the Saturday night schedule for 41 broadcasters or more actually, and we felt let's try and do something that still celebrates that sense of togetherness, and also honors the artist, because obviously we were sad, but we immediately realized what the impact was for the 41 artists that sort of prepared for the big 3 minutes of their professional careers. And for most of them, it's a one-off experience. It's a moment that can really build your career. And to see that go up in smoke for them must have been horrific. So we wanted to do something to still celebrate them and give them exposure, and share them and their music with the European audience, and to see that you create this show and no one really knows what to expect, and it's Eurovision, but it's not a song contest. No one really knows what they're gonna look at, and to still then have more than 70 million viewers for us was a big surprise. I think internally we said, if it's 20 or 30 million, we'd be really happy, and then it was 72. And it's not about the number, but it's for us it was a confirmation of the notion that there was this hunger from the people in Europe to get together and at least get a sense of Eurovision.
Yeah, you say it's not about numbers, but kind of course it is. It shows how the brand is rising, how the brand is kind of strong. And maybe even the program wasn't the best in all scales. It just proved that the message works, that this cooperation works, that what you said, talk together, works somehow. And we were at the start of learning it from the whole beginning, because that was, and it still is, a really transformational situation in many industries and in many relations as well. And maybe we're now very used to speak like this, like we do right now, and maybe we speak even more, because I don't remember we were speaking together for that long, already. So, and maybe about those topics as well. And I'm glad that it's possible, and we can share, our knowledge or our thinking about it. But it was really crucial times about the numbers, because you've lost kind of the hosting the Eurovision at that very moment, because your government, hosting the Eurovision, it's not just the money from the TV, but the whole country is involved, and maybe that was as well hard, and lots of money was wasted, kind of. Even no one could do anything about it. How hard was it for you and for a whole team to get it back together and get it back to Rotterdam?
Yeah, we obviously realized that we're not gonna let this opportunity to host Eurovision for the first time after 40 years. We're not going to let that opportunity go, and we wanna still do it, and we wanna keep the contest with us, which, as a participating broadcaster, is also a responsibility. If you win, you host, and we didn't do that yet. So we also felt that responsibility to keep it here. A lot of people, I remember even my mother-in-law saying the day after the cancellation, "Oh, but you're going to do it next year," and that was all of our feeling, that this is what was going to happen. But to actually get there, that was a different story. It was hard, because to have that talk with everyone involved during a pandemic with a very uncertain outlook for the future, we had to wrap things up with our insurance company. Thankfully, we had an insurance. We had to get Rotterdam behind it. We had to get the venue secured for a long period of time. We had to test whether the participating broadcasters were even interested in coming back.
Yeah.
A year later,
especially when it was very uncertain if it's gonna happen,
yeah.
And then the hotel problems and whatever. Yeah.
So there was so much that we had to get in line, but everyone had this. There was no doubt with anyone that this was going to happen in 2021. So we did three things in parallel. It was wrapping up the cancellation, closing contracts with suppliers, concluding the process with the insurance company, letting go some of the staff, cleaning up our desks, all these practical things. Then in parallel, we did Europe Shine a Light, which was sort of fun to do because it distracted us from all the bad news around us, and it gave us some energy, which we then also used to lay the foundation for 2021. So it was almost like symbolic for us that on the 16th of May we could announce at the end of the show, "See you next year in Rotterdam," and that was, I think, for all of us a very emotional moment.
And as well, the moment of responsibility, probably, because the danger is still there, and you made 4 scenarios for a contest to happen, but as well, it is probably very tense that the situation is changing like every day, kind of, in every state different, and I really think that we still are trying to find a way how to talk together on this scale, as I'm not really sure that we learn it through this period we were talking, in a year period nowadays, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. How big risk was it to tell yourself, well, we need to host it anyway in 2021, because you put yourself into a risk?
Part of the process between the cancellation and the announcement that we do it in 2021, I think it was about 7 weeks, and we used that time to think about the possible scenarios, because we realized that you can cancel this once, but you cannot do that twice. So we have to be pretty damn sure if we make that promise that we can fulfill that promise and not be, I think people are and have been very forgiving that everyone was taken by surprise from this pandemic, and that there was nothing we could do at a short notice. I remember some fans and journalists saying, "Oh, why don't you do it? Why don't you move it to June or July or even August?" Yeah.
And maybe you can explain how hard is this impossible actually in the TV world?
Well, first of all, it's to move the entire circus, as I call it, with your staff and the venue and suppliers, and traveling and hotels, and move that to June or July or August, based on the insights from the scientists. We were not at all comfortable with the risk that came with that, because we didn't know what the next months were going to bring. And in hindsight, I'm very glad we listened to their advice, because the situation was still very problematic in summer. And look at where we are now. Just to say, you know, have to just move it for a couple of months was not a realistic option practically, and it was not wise to do it either. But we did say, as part of the process between mid-March and mid-May last year, we have to think of the scenarios, and we have to make sure that we can make all of these scenarios work. So we spent a lot of time on that, also in May, in June, in July, thinking of what these scenarios could look like. When is the last moment we have to take decisions, and how far into the process can we downscale or scale back up? And that is a process that is affected by the changing reality every single day. And you know that too. Everything every day. You know, you start the morning and there is some hopeful news about a vaccine, and then halfway the day the numbers come, the infection numbers, and sometimes they're better than the day before, sometimes they're worse or even much worse. So every day is sort of
it's a roller coaster times for it. What's the last day for the decision making?
It's not really a specific day. There's no calendar saying, you know, D-Day, because taking decisions like this is a process which involves a lot of parties internally here. Of course, the EBU, the city of Rotterdam, the participating broadcasters, suppliers. They all have a seat at the table.
Yeah, but you probably have to decide one day
everyone to back it.
The scenario, or we are going this way, because you can't, even if it's a process, and especially in the TV world, everything must be a process. Lots of people are involved in the decision making. Even there's the one who say like it's going to be like this. It's not just dictatorship, as I just said, just for a shortener. But there must be set some date, or there must be set some kind of deadline for, well, this is the time, because after such piece of time you aren't able to make a TV show. So there must be something like this.
Yeah, there are a couple of important decisions we have to make in the first half of February. That's an important moment for us. And of course, we all hope that by early February we'd be in a situation where the pandemic has, you know, stabilized, where we see the impact of vaccines, where testing and all the lockdowns will show their effect. Now we know that the uncertainty about the pandemic will probably continue for a couple of weeks or even months. We see that in the UK, where the situation is pretty bad, in Ireland as well, and there are obviously a lot of concerns about the mutation that appears to be much more infectious.
Yeah, doesn't seem good in Czech Republic as well. So
yeah, so and I understand that concern, and it's obviously concerning for us as organizers. I'm sure it's concerning for everyone who is trying to plan events for spring and summer. So we're not yet out of the uncertainty. At the same time, the most interesting challenge we face now is, what do we believe the situation will be in May, and how certain can we be? That the impact of vaccination will show. How certain can we be that the virus retracts if the weather improves across Europe? So there's still a lot of uncertainties, and it's our job to make sure we pick the right scenario. And I've said it several times over the last few weeks, also here in the team. I've got the question many times. What is your worst case scenario? Isn't that scenario D, which is the sort of lockdown scenario? And having thought about that during the Christmas holiday, I realized that scenario D is not the worst case scenario, at least not for us as a team. The worst case scenario is if we stand in Ahoy in the venue on the 22nd of May, the day of the final, and feel as if we haven't tried everything. If the situation forces us to go to scenario B or C or D, it is what it is. But we want to be sure that we can look you in the eye and everyone who loves Eurovision, and that we can look ourselves in the mirror and say we've done everything we can possibly think of to make the best possible Eurovision Song Contest under the circumstances that we face. And I'm sure with this team we can achieve that, and everyone is really eager to do that. So the spirit is there, the ambition is there, the effort is there. And now all we need is a bit of luck.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think that's the approach I really like. I think that's inspirational as well, not just for me, but for all the people who will be listening to this, as nothing is wasted when you're just going through and when you look in the mirror and you just say, well, of course, I did maximum. I just did maximum. And when you're already, when you for sure did and you're not lying to yourself, that's always the best outcome, whatever happens, because the situation is anyway super unpredictable. But there is some, there is some light shined in in the end of the tunnel, which was Junior Eurovision, and that project that it really shown that even it's not the full format Eurovision big scale with fans format, it can be done, and it can be done quite nicely. How this experience help you out, and as well help you out even emotionally?
Yeah, actually we had a meeting with the Polish team yesterday. We decided after a Junior Eurovision, which they did really well, to give them some time to rest, and they were very eager to share their experiences with us, and that was very helpful. It was good to see that it can be done, that you can actually make a great show under these challenging circumstances. And of course it was challenging for them. Imagine what it must be like if you're in charge of that project, and every morning you have to wait and see who of your team comes through the door.
Yeah, I was talking about this
with a negative COVID test. Yeah,
with Marta Piekarska, my recent Humans of Eurovision show, when she was sharing exactly this, because she was as well at your shoes for this event as well.
Yeah,
and definitely it's not an easy task. So how her experience and her team's experience help you out with making another steps of yours, another decisions of yours?
And normally if you host an event like this, everything is about planning, deadlines, making sure that it's almost like an orchestra, and all the instruments have to play the symphony when you get there. In this circumstances, the orchestra has to be ready to change the symphony at any time, which requires lots of communication, lots of scenario planning, lots of flexibility from people. And it's a completely different mindset. Obviously, event people are used to being flexible and being solution focused, but this is a different ball game even for the most experienced organizers.
Yeah, especially because this is the new thing for everyone. This is probably the biggest event on the scale which will be done, because no Euro, no Olympics, and there's actually nothing really bigger than Eurovision if we just count off football and the athletics or sports in general. So there is probably even nobody who's really experienced in that. So this brings me to the another question, which are those remote staging, because this is probably as well, and probably will be the case, hopefully not, but it can be the case for the Eurovision as well. As you saw it at Junior Eurovision, what would you improve? And that's nothing harsh against the people who are done in it, but that was the first experience. So what would you done better, or how accurate you would be with how to make it, to make sure that everybody has the same, really the same, what's it called? Conditions.
The great thing about what they did in Poland was that they had everyone to create basically the same set design, which almost made it feel like everyone was there. Only when you went to the green room, you saw that, it was like in Zoom, it was everyone in boxes. When we thought about that concept, we thought, if we have to tell 41 broadcasters to create the same set, which is obviously a cost issue as well, and it's a technological challenge for some, you cannot ask too much from them. And I think in Poland they already managed to ask sort of for the maximum, with an LED floor and a big LED wall and a curved design.
And a small small studio, which is
sphere prop. Yeah. So you're putting a lot of work on the participating broadcasters. But then we thought, this is 12 acts. What if you have to look at the same fairly small set design 41 times? That could be maybe a little boring. So we said, let's go for the complete opposite, which is sort of in line with our theme, Open Up, and also reflects the diversity that the song contest is about for a large part. And just to give all broadcasters the opportunity to make their own creative choices. Now, obviously, we set sort of boundaries to how far you can go. You cannot, you cannot build a stage bigger than the one we have in Rotterdam. Because then you sort of, you get a competition like who has the biggest stage. That's not what it should be about. But it opens up for a lot of variety and a lot of different creative choices. And it'll be very interesting to see what all broadcasters come up with. And of course, we hope that we can bring all 41 acts to Rotterdam, because, we want them to be together and perform on that same stage, as it has always been at Eurovision. But if it's not, I think it will be one of the most colorful and diverse Eurovision Song Contest we've ever seen. So that will be very interesting too. And it's almost a pity you cannot do both, because it will be very interesting to see what the differences are.
But you kind of can, because the countries, if I understood it correctly, are obliged to do this pre-record anyway. So maybe we can see both. Maybe that would be great. Not in the same show, not at the same show, but maybe it will be nice to see it, the thinking of how to step up out of the comfort zone, let's say it like this.
Yeah, and that's a decision up to the EBU. And let's not forget, we may also end up in a scenario where some acts are the live on tape performances, and others perform live in Rotterdam. It will be a mix. Priority for the EBU and of course also for us as a host broadcaster was, how do you make a level playing field? How do you keep it as fair as you can keep it? So we spent a lot of meetings on discussing how to achieve the maximum level of fairness.
Yeah, you as well said that the vaccination is not the must for the artist, but does it really means that or it may mean that, like, well, the artist, you don't need to have the vaccine, but then you can't go to Rotterdam, and that's the pre-record, or it's automatically taken instead of it. Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah. Now, obviously, personally, I'm a big supporter of vaccination, and if it's my turn, I'll take the shot, and I hope that as many people as possible can take it, because it's the way out of this pandemic. At the same time, taking a vaccine is a very personal choice. It's a decision everyone has to make for themselves, and there's a big debate going on in the media, in politics here, and I'm sure in many other countries, probably in your country too, whether a vaccine should be mandatory or whether it should be mandatory to allow certain things. For example, if you have the vaccine, you can go to an event, or you can go to a bar or restaurant or whatever. We, as organizers, don't believe it is up to us to make it obligatory to get a vaccine. That's a decision that politicians will have to make. That said, the more people have it, the better. And if people don't have it, we should anyhow implement a rigorous testing protocol, just like they have with other events that are happening, like Formula One, the football competitions. They all work with testing to make sure that they keep infections out of their secure environment.
Yeah, for sure.
That's something we're very closely looking at as well. So it may very well be that if the delegations come to Rotterdam in May, they'll have to regularly get tested before they enter the venue. It may be that they have to stay in their hotel as much as possible, just like with other big events. But what I feel now from the participating broadcasters is that everyone is very understanding that a protocol like that is important to keep everyone safe, healthy, and to ultimately ensure that everyone can take part in the song contest performing on stage in Rotterdam. So there is a lot of support for it. It's very challenging, obviously, but we have some of the best people in the country working on this right now.
Which is great, and I think each country, or most of the countries, try to solve this problem, kind of, and especially artists and people from the TV industry and the music industry really understand how important it is, because this is maybe the chance how to show and prove that even at those times it is possible. And I think we all need to see that this is possible to do, and this is showing the world we are here together, we're opened up again. And actually that brings me to your PR campaign, which I love, which you stayed with the same theme, but you just a bit reinvented. And you talk about it a bit, but can you tell me more about it and what we can expect in the future? Because you presented the idea for the postcard, but is there something you can tell me exclusively, maybe just a little small thing, which can we expect as well?
When we had to think of a theme, and the theme is important because it's like your coat rack from where you sort of hang all your creative elements. It's a good way to create a story around your shows, which not all viewers immediately recognize, but you notice it when it's not there. So we said we need a strong theme, and at the time when we came up with it, we looked at the world around us and we realized that there was a lot of polarization going on, and still is going on, which is a lot about listening to each other and about being open to each other's point of view, and sort of get out of your filter bubble and hear out each other's opinions. And as long as we remain interested in each other, that will strengthen society. And openness it's also a very Dutch thing. It's everyone who went to Amsterdam probably knows the images of, you can just look into people's living rooms because the curtains are always open. Dutch people are very open. They talk a lot, not all as much as I do, but they talk a lot and they have very clear opinions. They voice them loud and clear, and that's also it is very Dutch. So open up almost felt like a natural theme for us. When the pandemic hit, and we all suddenly had to face lockdowns, we thought, open up is maybe a little bit strange if you are in a lockdown. But we also realized very quickly that even in a pandemic, people find new ways to open up. I mean, the very fact that we're doing this podcast with you right now, would probably not have done that if it hadn't been for this situation. People going out and applaud for healthcare workers from their windows and balconies like they did in Italy and then in many other countries. We find new ways to open up, even if we are limited by the circumstances. And what we hope, and I'm sure many people with us, is that the Eurovision Song Contest in May marks a moment where we can start to open up again as a society. And we may not be at the end of this crisis, but we certainly hope that it will be the beginning of the end or somewhere halfway back to normal. And that's why we think that open up will remain relevant. Now, obviously, you asked, can you reveal anything? There's nothing nothing big that I can reveal. But one thing I can mention is that this year there's no allocation draw because we decided to stick to the draw results from last year. The host city insignia from Tel Aviv are already in Rotterdam, so no need for an exchange there either. But we did come up with an alternative a little bit later, but we did come up with an alternative to celebrate Eurovision, to celebrate the theme Open Up, to celebrate the diversity that Eurovision is all about, and to build towards the 3 shows in May. How exactly we're going to do that, we will reveal in the weeks to come.
I'm really curious about it. I'm really curious about everything you just said. As this is really make me think how even more important this work can be, and how really important is to just make it the hell happen. It must happen, but maybe it must happen in this really nice way of your speech. I've heard a lot of people from my industry and from the music industry and from all the cultural spectrum of the industries, which were really, really heavily struck by the COVID. And most people, they're saying, like, I can't wait to come back to normal. But do you believe there is something like normal, or the new opportunities which this situation brought and we had to adapt just change it, and there's no back to normal, but it's gonna be something new which we should open up for?
I think just because we all have this shared experience of the pandemic, this touched everyone's life in different ways. Some people got sick or worse. People lost their jobs. People face all sorts of challenges. People are concerned about their health and about the health of people around them. It hurts economically. It hurts socially. There are a lot of people that are depressed, and that is all understandable. I don't think there is I don't think you can go back to normal in the sense that we'll magically transport back the way it was in January last year. and pick it up from there. I think there is an opportunity to build a new normal with this experience. This reminds me of a story I saw in the news a couple of months ago. It was a teacher in Indonesia, and every day she had to text on WhatsApp her students about their homework. And the students were in a village at quite a distance, and every day they had to walk up to a mountain to get enough cell phone reception to get the message from their teachers. And they went to the students and they went to the teacher and interviewed the teacher, and the teacher at some point burst into tears, and she said, I miss my students, I miss being with them. And at that point I really realized that no matter who you are or where you live around the world, this affects everyone. And I think it's an opportunity to realize that there will be more global challenges in the decades to come. Think of climate change, for example. This is another big challenge we have to solve, and we can only do that while doing it together.
Yeah, maybe this is the right signal for us that we really have to cooperate together more than we are used to.
Yeah.
And as well, your story tells the other thing, that the how close people should be together, how important it is for us to be close to each other, even if we're maybe not the people who needs to be or doesn't need to have people around us too much. But now you're really kind of alone, and we miss it. And maybe that's important, and that's for sure very important for the contest itself, which is made for people to gather together, to celebrate their diversity, to feel home kind of together and celebrate this together.
Yeah. And
as well for the artists, for their acts and for their music and for singing in front of the full arena. It's very important, and we know that it's very different without the fans, even the feeling of the music. So how this goal for you it goes? Should we expect that even if there are just people of Rotterdam involved into the arena, is this one of the goals, like must-have goals for you to make Eurovision even similar to the Eurovision before? Yeah,
the one thing I realized when you just talk was that on one hand, in Europe, we've never collaborated so much around the Eurovision Song Contest. Normally we have one head of delegation meeting in March and we all gather physically. And this year we already had 4 heads of delegation meetings, but through Zoom, and keep each other informed and give each other advice and share knowledge and information. And that was good. That was good to do. And I'm sure that tradition will maintain. At the same time, I also believe that when this is over, there will be a new appetite, a new hunger for getting together physically, meet each other, talk, discuss, laugh, and have a good time, and have events like the Eurovision Song Contest. Obviously, we will do everything we can, and we will do everything that allows us to make the best out of it. Like I just said, we want to make the best out of it, and ideally, that is with 3 amazing live shows, with a full arena, with fans who truly are part of the Eurovision brand. It's just too early to say whether that is possible or whether there is, whether we have to look at reduced numbers of audience, which is part of our scenario B. So it's all a bit too early to say. But one promise I can make is we will do our absolute best to make the best Eurovision Song Contest under these circumstances.
Yeah, and I wish very best of luck of making this happen, as I'm a big fan of yours, big fan of your team. big fan of Eurovision, of course, nowadays, and I think that that's a super challenging times for you, and I'm glad that you prevailed and show with your team that this enthusiasm for making something happen and the philosophy behind it is very important to have, and it's very inspirational for me and hopefully for all of us. Thank you, Sietse, for sharing your time with me. It was a great conversation.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to talk to you. I'm a big fan of your podcast. I think it's a great initiative, and I hope you'll continue for many weeks, months, and maybe even years to come.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to put it aside. As I said, I must do maximum. I want to look at the mirror, as you said. Thank you very much, and wish you best of luck for making the contest happens and for us that we open up again.
Thanks, Jan.
And that was Sietse's words, and I really hope it was inspirational for you too. And I really hope this channel is inspirational for you too, as I have interviews with many inspirational people, and I will bring you more. So please subscribe the channel for having more, ring the bell, like the video, and of course share the video, because I think it's very important to get it to the most, and that's what I have to ask you for. And I see you next time. Thank you very much. Bye.